The alarms blared through the small scout ship as Kira fought to maintain control. Red warning lights flashed across her control panel, and the ship shuddered violently. Something had struck her vessel during her routine scan of this unexplored solar system, perhaps a small asteroid or space debris. Whatever it was, it had damaged her engines beyond repair. Emergency systems failing, the ship's computer announced in a calm voice that contrasted sharply with Kira's rising panic. Hull integrity compromised. Impact with planetary surface imminent. Kira's four-fingered hands flew across the controls, trying desperately to send a distress signal to the Illuvian mothership stationed at the edge of this system. Message not delivered. The computer informed her. Communication array destroyed. Kira felt her heart sink. Without a distress signal, no one would come looking for her. The Illuvian High Command had strict rules about contamination of pre-contact worlds. If a scout was compromised, they were considered expendable. Better to lose one scout than risk revealing their presence to a primitive species that wasn't ready for first contact. And now she was plummeting toward the third planet of this system, the one teeming with life, and the radio signals that had attracted Illuvian interest in the first place. Through the view screen, Kira watched as the blue and green planet grew larger. The ship entered the atmosphere, and flames licked at the hull. The temperature inside the cabin rose rapidly as the environmental systems failed one by one. Impact in 60 seconds, the computer said. Recommend emergency stasis. But Kira knew better. The stasis system was designed for deep space travel, not crash landings. She needed to remain conscious to have any chance of survival. Instead, she strapped herself tightly into her seat and diverted all remaining power to the kinetic dampeners. If they held, she might survive the impact. If not, the ship screamed through the atmosphere, leaving a fiery trail across the night sky. Below, the landscape was dark, dotted with only a few clusters of artificial lights. Good. At least she wasn't going to crash into a major population center. Kira's scanners indicated a large forested area ahead. That was her best chance. She manually adjusted the ship's glide path, aiming for the densest part of the forest, where the trees might help break her fall. Impact in 10 seconds, the computer announced. 9, 8. Kira closed her large, silvery eyes and braced herself. 3, 2, 1. The impact was like nothing she had ever experienced. Despite the dampeners, she was thrown forward violently, her restraints cutting into her pale blue skin. Something sharp tore through the cabin wall and sliced across her side. She felt warm liquid, her blood, seeping from the wound. When the ship finally came to rest, the silence was almost as shocking as the crash had been. The computer was dead. The emergency lights flickered weakly and then went out, leaving her in darkness. Kira unstrapped herself with trembling hands and climbed unsteadily to her feet. Pain shot through her body, and her hand came away wet when she touched her side. The wound was deep. Without medical attention, she might not survive long. She fumbled in the darkness until she found the emergency kit. The bioluminescent light inside cast an eerie blue glow throughout the wrecked cabin. Kira applied a temporary seal to her wound, knowing it wouldn't hold for long. Standard protocol was clear. Destroy all evidence of the ship, activate the molecular decay sequence, and hide until extraction. If extraction was even coming. But in her heart, Kira knew the truth. No one would come for her. The Illuvian never risked exposure for the sake of a single scout. Stumbling out of the broken hull, Kira looked up at the unfamiliar stars of this world. The night air was cool against her skin, and strange sounds came from the forest around her. She needed to hide her ship and find shelter before the indigenous species discovered the crash. With the last of her strength, Kira activated the ship's camouflage system. It wasn't perfect, but it would help conceal the wreckage from casual observers. Then, leaving a trail of luminescent blue blood behind her, she staggered into the dark forest, alone and abandoned on a strange world. Jack Miller drove his Forest Service truck down the narrow dirt road, the headlights cutting through the early morning fog. Reports of a strange light in the sky and a loud crash during the night had come in from a few locals. As the ranger responsible for this section of the Michigan wilderness, it was his job to investigate. Probably just a meteor, he muttered to himself, taking a sip from his thermos of coffee. He had been a forest ranger for only 3 years, ever since he left his job as an emergency room doctor. After losing his wife to cancer, the hospital held too many painful memories. Out here in the forest, he found peace in the solitude. Jack parked his truck at the end of the service road and grabbed his backpack. The coordinates of the reported crash were still another mile into the dense forest. He checked his radio, compass, and first aid kit before setting off on foot. The morning was quiet except for the occasional bird call and the crunch of leaves under his boots. Jack followed his compass, scanning the area for any signs of disturbance. After hiking for 40 minutes, he noticed something unusual on the ground ahead. "What the hell is that?" he whispered. A strange blue liquid stained the forest floor. It had a faint glow, unlike anything Jack had ever seen. It certainly wasn't oil or any chemical he recognized from his medical training. He crouched down for a closer look but was careful not to touch it. Jack followed the trail of blue droplets deeper into the forest. The trees here showed signs of damage, broken branches and scorched bark. Something had definitely come through here with force. The trail led to a small clearing where the blue liquid formed larger puddles. Jack's eyes followed the strange substance to its source, and he froze in shock. Lying against the base of a large oak tree was a figure. At first glance, it looked almost human. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But as Jack cautiously approached, he saw the differences. The figure was slender with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer slightly in the dappled sunlight. 4-fingered hands lay limp at its sides. The face was humanoid but with larger, almond-shaped eyes and no visible ears. "My God," Jack whispered. It was clearly injured. The blue liquid, blood, he realized, seeped from a deep gash in its side. A makeshift bandage had come loose, and the creature's breathing was shallow and irregular. Jack's medical training kicked in despite his shock. Whatever this being was, it was alive and hurt. He knelt beside the alien figure and checked for a pulse, finding one at the base of its neck, rapid and weak. The creature's eyes suddenly fluttered open, revealing silvery irises that seemed to glow from within. It flinched away from Jack's touch with a weak cry of fear. "It's okay," Jack said softly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm not going to hurt you." The alien tried to push itself away from him, but grimaced in pain, clutching at its wounded side. Jack slowly reached for his first aid kit. "You're injured. I can help." The creature watched him warily but didn't try to move again. Jack suspected it was too weak to flee. He carefully cleaned and dressed the wound as best he could, though the alien anatomy was unlike anything he'd studied in medical school. The blue blood seemed thicker than human blood, and the skin had an unusual texture, almost like fine scales. As he worked, Jack made a decision that he knew would change his life forever. He couldn't leave this being here to die, nor could he turn it over to authorities who would likely treat it as a lab specimen rather than a patient. "I'm going to take you somewhere safe," he told the alien, not sure if it could understand him. "My cabin isn't far from here. I can treat you better there." The creature's silver eyes studied his face, and Jack had the distinct feeling it was trying to assess whether he could be trusted. With gentle movements, Jack lifted the alien into his arms. It was surprisingly light, and its body was cool to the touch. The being made no sound but continued to watch him with those strange silver eyes. As Jack carried his extraordinary find through the forest toward his cabin, he wondered what he had gotten himself into. One thing was certain, life as he knew it would never be the same again. Jack's cabin was small but clean, nestled in a clearing surrounded by tall pine trees. He carried the alien inside and gently laid her on his bed. The blue creature remained conscious but weak, her silver eyes following his every move. "Let me get you properly fixed up," Jack said, gathering his medical supplies. He had kept a well-stocked medical kit from his days as a doctor. Now he was glad for his old habits. The alien's wound was unlike anything he had treated before, but the principles were the same. Clean the injury, stop the bleeding, prevent infection. As Jack worked, the alien suddenly spoke. The sound was like nothing he had ever heard, clicks and musical tones that made no sense to his ears. The alien seemed frustrated. She reached to her neck and adjusted something there, a small device Jack hadn't noticed before. She tried again. "Do not harm me," came a halting, mechanical-sounding voice. Jack nearly dropped his bandages in surprise. "You can speak English." "Universal translator," she replied, her voice becoming clearer as the device calibrated. "Standard equipment for scouts." "I'm not going to hurt you," Jack assured her, returning to treating her wound. "I'm a doctor, a healer. My name is Jack." The alien was silent for a moment, as if considering whether to trust him with her name. "I am called Kira," she finally said. "Nice to meet you, Kira, though I wish it were under better circumstances," Jack said, trying to keep his voice calm despite the extraordinary situation. "Can you tell me what happened to you?" "Ship malfunction. Crashed." Her words were clipped, either from pain or caution. "Not supposed to be here. Not supposed to make contact with your kind." Jack nodded, focusing on cleaning the deep gash in her side. "Well, sometimes plans change. You're lucky I found you. This wound is serious." "Why help me?" Kira asked, her silver eyes studying him intently. "Your species is known to fear what is different." Jack thought about this as he applied a fresh bandage. "Some do, sure, but not everyone. You needed help. That's reason enough for me." Kira seemed confused by this answer. "My people would not do the same. Scouts are expendable. Protocol says I should be abandoned if compromised." "That's a harsh policy," Jack said, frowning. "It is efficient," Kira replied, though Jack noticed a flicker of something like sadness in her eyes. Once he finished treating her wound, Jack helped Kira sit up and offered her water. She examined the glass cautiously before drinking. "Your body temperature is lower than humans," Jack observed. "Are you cold?" "My species regulates temperature differently," she explained. "But yes, your world is warmer than I am accustomed to." Jack adjusted the cabin's air conditioning and brought her a light blanket. "This should help. You need to rest now. That wound won't heal if you keep moving around." Kira reluctantly settled back against the pillows. "My ship needs to be hidden better. If your authorities find it, I'll take care of it," Jack promised. "But first, you need medicine. I have antibiotics, but I'm not sure if they'll work for your biology." "They will not," Kira confirmed. "In my pack, there is a blue container with medical supplies." Jack retrieved her small pack from where he had set it by the door. Inside was an assortment of strange objects, including a smooth blue cylinder. Kira took it and pressed one end. A fine mist sprayed over her wound. "Cellular regenerator," she explained. "It will help." As the day progressed, Jack checked on Kira regularly. Her condition seemed to stabilize, but she remained weak. While she slept, he prepared a simple soup, not knowing if she could eat human food, but wanting to offer something. When Kira awoke, she eyed the soup with suspicion. "I analyzed your food sources when we first discovered your planet," she said. "This appears compatible with my digestion. Basic proteins and carbohydrates are universal building blocks." Jack smiled as she cautiously tasted the soup. "Universal, huh? Seems we might have more in common than differences." Kira didn't respond, but Jack noticed she finished the entire bowl. It was a small victory, he thought. The first step in building trust. As night fell, Jack made a bed for himself on the couch, leaving Kira the bedroom. Before he went to sleep, he checked her wound one last time. It already looked better. the blue skin beginning to knit together thanks to her alien medicine. "Why are you helping me?" Kira asked again, her voice softer than before. "You gain nothing from this." Jack considered his answer carefully. "Sometimes helping others is its own reward, Kira. That's something I hope you'll understand during your time here." 3 days passed, and Kira grew stronger. The wound on her side was healing well, thanks to her regenerative medicine and Jack's care. She began to move around the cabin, curious about human living habits. Jack returned from checking on Kira's ship, which he had covered with branches and leaves to hide it better. He found her examining the photos on his bookshelf. "Who is this female?" Kira asked, pointing to a picture of a smiling woman with long brown hair. "That was my wife, Lisa," Jack replied, his voice growing quiet. "She died 3 years ago." "I am sorry," Kira said, studying his face. "This caused you pain. Is this why you live alone in the forest?" Jack nodded, surprised by her insight. "Partly. I couldn't face the hospital anymore. Too many memories." Kira seemed about to respond when she suddenly stiffened. Her head turned sharply toward the window, and her silver eyes widened with alarm. "What's wrong?" Jack asked. "A signal," she whispered. "My ship's emergency beacon must still be active. I thought it was destroyed in the crash." "Is that bad?" "Very bad," Kira said, her voice tense. "It means others know I am here." Miles away, in a secret government facility, Agent Diane Carter stared at a computer screen showing an unusual signal pattern. Her team had picked up the faint beacon 3 days ago, but it had taken this long to pinpoint its location. "The signal is coming from the northern forest region," her assistant Ben said. "It matches no known human transmission pattern." Agent Carter nodded. "Prepare a team. We leave in 1 hour." At the same time, far above Earth's atmosphere, a sleek black ship received the same signal. Inside, 3 Illuvian soldiers prepared for descent. "Scout Kira's beacon is active," the commander said. "Protocol is clear. We retrieve any technology and eliminate evidence of our presence." "Including the scout?" one soldier asked. "She is already considered lost," the commander replied coldly. "Her continued existence poses an unacceptable contamination risk." Back at the cabin, Kira explained the danger to Jack. "My people will send a cleaner squad," she said, pacing the small living room. "They will destroy my ship, any evidence I was here, and—" she paused. "And you," Jack finished, his face grim. Kira nodded. "I am a liability now. And your government will also come. They must have detected the signal too." Jack ran his hands through his hair, thinking quickly. "How long do we have?" "The signal is weak. Perhaps 1 day before they pinpoint this location." Jack began gathering supplies. Food, water, medical kits, and maps. "We need to move. I know these forests better than anyone. There are old hunting cabins and caves where we can hide." Kira watched him with confusion. "You would risk yourself for me. Your government would consider you a traitor for hiding me." "I'm not turning you over to be a lab experiment," Jack said firmly. "And I'm definitely not letting your people kill you for following protocol." For the first time since he'd found her, Kira smiled. It was a small gesture, but it transformed her alien features, making her seem suddenly more relatable. "My people believe emotions are inefficient," she said quietly. "But I find your loyalty moving." Jack smiled back. "Emotions might be messy, but they make life worth living." As they prepared to leave, Kira's sensitive hearing picked up a sound that made her freeze. "Aircraft," she whispered. "Coming this way." Jack looked out the window and saw a black helicopter approaching in the distance. "Government," he said. "Faster than I expected." "We must go now," Kira urged. "Is there another exit?" Jack nodded and moved a rug, revealing a trapdoor. "Old root cellar. Leads to a tunnel that comes out near the stream. Hunters used it a century ago." As they slipped through the hidden passage, Jack's cabin came into view of the helicopter's cameras. Agent Carter studied the live feed, noting the truck parked outside. "The Forest Ranger's cabin," she said. "Interesting coincidence. Run a background check on him immediately." Her assistant handed her a file. "Already did. Jack Miller, former ER doctor, exemplary record. No red flags." Agent Carter narrowed her eyes. "Everyone has secrets. Find his." Meanwhile, the Illuvian ship entered Earth's atmosphere under cover of night, its advanced technology making it invisible to human radar. The hunt had begun. Jack and Kira moved quickly through the underground tunnel. It was old and narrow, with roots hanging from the dirt ceiling. Jack led the way with a flashlight while Kira followed close behind. This tunnel was built by bootleggers during something called Prohibition, Jack explained in a hushed voice. They used it to hide alcohol from the government. "Your species has a long history of hiding from authorities," Kira observed. Jack chuckled softly. "I guess we do." They emerged from the tunnel near a small stream. The forest was dense here, providing good cover. Jack checked his compass and pointed east. "There's an old hunting cabin about 5 miles that way. We can rest there tonight." As they hiked through the woods, Jack showed Kira how to walk without leaving obvious tracks. She learned quickly, her natural grace making her movements almost silent. "You adapt well," Jack said, impressed. "Scouts are trained to observe and learn," Kira replied. "But I have never had to hide from my own people before." The sun began to set, casting long shadows through the trees. Jack and Kira stopped to rest briefly, sharing water and some dried food from Jack's pack. "Tell me about your world," Jack said as they ate. Kira hesitated, then spoke. "It is called Illuvia, a planet with 3 moons and rings like your Saturn. Our cities are built in harmony with nature, rising from the ground like crystal formations." "Sounds beautiful," Jack said. "It is," Kira agreed, a hint of sadness in her voice. "But beauty is not everything. My people value order and efficiency above all else. Every individual serves a purpose. Mine was to scout new worlds, gather information, and report back without interference." "And now?" Jack asked. Kira looked up at the darkening sky. "Now I am considered a broken tool. Replaceable." "Not to me," Jack said simply. Kira's silver eyes met his, and something passed between them, an understanding that transcended their different worlds. Their moment was interrupted by a distant sound. Kira's sensitive hearing picked it up first. "Aerial craft," she whispered. "And ground vehicles." Jack nodded. "They're searching the area systematically. We need to keep moving." As night fell completely, they continued their journey through the forest. The darkness was both a blessing and a challenge. It hid them from searchers but made navigation more difficult. Jack's years in these woods guided them safely. They crossed streams to mask their scent and trail, took detours around clearings where they might be spotted, and moved from shadow to shadow. At the government command post, Agent Carter reviewed the search grid with frustration. "Nothing yet," Ben reported. "The Ranger knows these woods well." "What about satellite thermal imaging?" Carter asked. "Too much wildlife interference," Ben replied. "And there's something else. Another search team is out there." Carter frowned. "Who?" "We didn't authorize any other agencies." Ben shook his head. "Unknown. They're using technology we can't even track properly. 3 individuals, moving with military precision." Carter's eyes narrowed. "So we're not the only ones looking for whatever crashed in those woods." In another part of the forest, the Illuvian soldiers moved with cold efficiency. Their suits allowed them to see in complete darkness, and their scanners searched for Kira's unique biological signature. "The beacon signal is strongest this way," the commander said, pointing toward a clearing ahead. They found Kira's crashed ship, still partially hidden under branches and leaves. "Someone has attempted to conceal it," one soldier noted. "Local interference," the commander said dismissively. "Prepare the molecular dissolver. No trace can remain." As they worked to erase all evidence of the ship, one soldier checked his scanner again. "Commander, I'm detecting Scout Kira's life sign. Faint, but moving, approximately 4 miles northeast. The commander's expression hardened. Then our mission is not complete. We track her down, eliminate the contamination, and any local who has made contact. Miles away, Jack and Kira finally reached the old hunting cabin. It was small and dusty, but solid and well hidden among the trees. "We should be safe here for tonight," Jack said, securing the door behind them. Kira moved to the window and looked out at the star-filled sky. "They won't stop looking," she said quietly. "Neither your people nor mine." Jack stood beside her. "Then we'll need a better plan than just running." "I may have one," Kira said, turning to face him. "But it's dangerous, and I will need your help." Dawn broke over the forest as Jack and Kira prepared to leave the hunting cabin. Kira had explained her plan during the night, and though Jack thought it was risky, he agreed it was their best option. "We need to get back to my crash site," Kira said as she checked the small device she had taken from her pack. "My ship's communication system might still be intact. If I can repair it, I can send a message." "To who?" Jack asked. "I thought your people wanted you eliminated." "Not all of them," Kira replied. "There is a small group within our society who question our rigid ways. They believe in peaceful contact with other species. If I can reach them, they might help us." Jack nodded as he packed their few supplies. "It's about 20 miles back to your crash site. We'll need to be extra careful. Both search teams will be converging there." They set out as the morning mist still clung to the forest floor. Jack chose their path carefully, keeping to the densest parts of the woods. Kira moved with increasing confidence, her strength returning more each day. "Your care has helped me heal faster than expected," she told Jack as they navigated a rocky slope. "My people would be surprised by your kindness." "Is kindness really so foreign to the Illuvian?" Jack asked. "Not foreign, but limited," Kira explained. "We show care to those in our assigned units, but the needs of the individual are always secondary to the needs of our society as a whole." "Sounds lonely," Jack said. Kira was quiet for a moment. "I never thought of it as lonely until now." By midday, they had covered nearly half the distance to the crash site. They stopped to rest near a small pond, hidden by thick bushes. Jack shared the last of their food, while Kira scanned the sky with worried eyes. "Something's wrong," she said suddenly, her body tensing. "Listen." Jack strained his ears, but heard nothing unusual. "What is it?" "The forest is too quiet," Kira whispered. "No birds, no insects." Jack realized she was right. The natural sounds of the woods had fallen silent. He reached for his pack, ready to move, when a twig snapped nearby. In one fluid motion, Kira pulled Jack down into the bushes. They lay perfectly still as footsteps approached their hiding place. Through the leaves, Jack could see black boots moving slowly along the edge of the pond. The boots were unlike any hiking gear he'd ever seen, made of a material that seemed to shift color slightly with the surroundings. "Illuvian soldier," Kira breathed, her lips close to Jack's ear. The soldier paused, looking directly toward their hiding spot. He raised a device that resembled a small metal rod and pointed it in their direction. Jack's heart pounded so loudly he was sure it would give them away. The soldier took one step closer. Suddenly, the sound of a helicopter broke the silence. The soldier looked up, then quickly moved back into the deeper forest, away from the noise. "That was close," Jack whispered once the soldier was gone. "Too close," Kira agreed. "They're using bio-trackers. They can sense my presence if they get near enough." The helicopter grew louder, circling overhead. Jack recognized it as the same black government chopper he had seen at his cabin. "We're caught between both teams now," he said grimly. Kira's silver eyes were determined. "Then we move faster." They continued their journey, now with even greater caution. The forest became their ally, providing cover as they darted from tree to tree, ridge to ridge. Late in the afternoon, they'd reached a high point that gave them a view of the valley below. Jack pointed to a clearing about 2 miles away. "Your ship should be there," he said. But look, even from this distance, they could see activity in the clearing. The Illuvian soldiers moved around what remained of Kira's ship, while government vehicles formed a perimeter further out. They haven't seen each other yet, Kira observed. But they will soon. What happens when they do? Jack asked. Nothing good, Kira replied grimly. My people will not allow yours to obtain our technology. They will use deadly force if necessary. Jack studied the scene below. We need a diversion. Something to draw their attention away from the ship long enough for you to reach it and send your message. Kira turned to him, concern in her eyes. What are you suggesting? I'll create a distraction, Jack said firmly. You repair the communication system. It's too dangerous, Kira protested. If they catch you. They won't, Jack assured her, though he was far from certain. Besides, this is my world. I know how to deal with our government agents better than you do. Kira placed her hand on Jack's arm, a gesture she had learned from him. Why would you risk this for me? Jack covered her hand with his own. Because some things are worth fighting for. What the hell? She whispered. Jack saw his chance in the confusion. Agent Carter, listen to me. There are two groups here. One wants to study the visitor. One wants to kill her. Which side are you on? At the ship, Kira finally completed the repairs. She sent her message, a plea for help along with data about her experience with Jack, evidence that humans were capable of compassion and worthy of peaceful contact rather than avoidance. A confirmation flashed on her screen. Message received. Help was coming. A sudden energy blast outside the ship made her heart race. She rushed to the exit to see Jack caught between Agent Carter and the Illuvian commander. Stop, Kira shouted, emerging from the ship. Everyone froze. The commander turned his weapon toward Kira. Scout Kira, you have violated our most sacred protocols, he stated coldly. The penalty is termination. Your protocols are wrong, Kira replied, moving to stand beside Jack. And I am no longer your scout. As the commander prepared to fire, a blinding light filled the sky above them. A ship far larger than Kira's scout vessel descended through the clouds, bathing the clearing in blue light. The resistance. Kira breathed in relief. They received my message. The commander lowered his weapon, aware he was now outmatched. Agent Carter looked at Jack. Ranger Miller, I think you owe me an explanation. Jack smiled. It's a long story, Agent Carter, but I think we're all about to be part of something historic. The large ship landed gracefully in the clearing. As its doors opened, Kira took Jack's hand in hers. Thank you, she said simply, for finding me when I was wounded and abandoned. Thank you, Jack replied, for helping me find myself again. Together, they walked forward to meet the future neither of them had expected, but both now welcomed.